Just days after it was announced, Loblaws says it will bring back the 50% discount on last day sale items. In a statement to CP24, the company said it listened to feedback from customers about the decision and will not be lowering the items near their expiration date. Loblaws was previously offering discounts of up to 50% on these last day items, but on Monday they said they would be lowering that discount to between 30 and 50%. Canada's big grocers are still under pressure from Ottawa to stabilize food prices. So for more on Loblaws backtracking, we're joined live by Tony Chapman, marketing expert and host of the Chatter That Matters podcast. Tony, good to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about this kind of walk back from Loblaw. Were you surprised at all that this happened?
I'm surprised at how many hairballs this brand's been coughing up over the last couple of years. And first of all, in all fairness to Loblaw, they are the biggest grocery store, 30% market share, $1 billion of sales every week. So they're going to be in the crosshairs. Government's angry with them, consumer groups, everybody's blaming, the price of groceries on Loblaw. That's not fair. But what is fair to blame on Loblaw is this sense of that they are the kings. They dictate the rules. We saw it with bread price fixing, saw it with the grocery code, and now this yo-yo with discounts. They have to start realizing that their job is to signal to the consumer, we'll do everything we can to make your groceries affordable. We'll do everything we can with our size and our strength to make it easier for you. And in fact, the opposite seems to be the narrative of this brand.
I mean, that's what's confusing to me. What's the mindset here, do you think? I mean, that seems like a terrific PR move in my mind. Right now, I think a lot of people would flock to any big grocer that's actually offering lower prices. To do something like this, is it really worth it to even save more money or make more money by, slashing these discount prices of 50%? Or is that just a terrible PR move?
It's a terrible PR move. I mean, this was a brand for years that cultivated the Galen Weston with the sweater. He's in your kitchen. He's a nice guy, and he is a nice guy. I did a TV show with Galen Weston. They really established themselves as a friendly part of your repertoire of brands. But over the last couple, they're almost acting like it's profit above all. It's our terms above all. We're the rulers. We're the kingpins. We have the dominant market share. We're going to dictate the terms. And doing something like this, when 40% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, when they're making decisions, do I put fuel in my tank or food on my table or a roof over my head? The last thing you need to signal to the average consumer is to say, you know what, we used to give you a 50% break. Now we're going to do a 30% because that's kind of what our competitors do. I think that is completely offside for what a brand needs to be today. A brand needs today to be on the side of the consumer above all, and by doing so, earn your profits accordingly.
So do you think this latest walk back as well is, the company actually listening to customers and saying, okay, you know what, we took it too far this time?
Absolutely, they're listening. But again, they should never have done that move, because what it does is they look highly reactive. They look like they're scrambling. We trust brands that have got consistency, authenticity. They're trustworthy. They're solid. It's like their hands on a rudder that says, I know where they're heading, and I believe in them. When you start zigging and zagging, 1 minute it's on, 1 minute it's off, you start realizing, well, if I hadn't said anything, what would be next? And that's where they've got to really regroup as an organization, put the consumer first, use their power to defend the consumer and their need to try to put honest and groceries on the table. And I think Loblaw can do that, and they can regain that voice. But right now, they've lost their voice.
And this obviously comes at a time when the federal government has been pushing those big grocers to kind of stabilize their prices. As you mentioned, Loblaw kind of takes a lot of the heat, and Galen Weston as well. That name dragged through the mud a little bit in the last couple of years. But are there any grocers at this point that you think are actually working to stabilize their prices?
I think a lot of the independent grocers, I mean, I'm a huge fan of what Longo's has been doing in Ontario, Save on Foods out west. There's a lot of grocers, and I would include Loblaw, that are trying really hard to put a great product out in front of the consumer. We're blessed with fantastic assortment in grocery stores, but it's the price point. Where the federal government, I think, went offside is blaming the grocers for inflation within the food chain. You have to blame the economy. You have to blame all the money we've been printed. You have to look at all the complexity. Just to put one person on there and put a spotlight on, to me, is lazy politics. It tries to say, hey, we screwed up in the economy, but we're going to put the lens on them. And I think that was offside as well. But from my point of view, Loblaw, this whole in and out reverse discounting, to me, is brand 101. I have no idea who's running that organization now, but they should really have focused in on who we are, why do we matter, and where are we going as an organization, and always having the consumer as a North Star. If they did that, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Hopefully that maybe happens in the future. Tony, I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
That is Tony Chapman, marketing expert and host of the Chatter That Matters podcast.